To get a mature industry, you need to engage both all the producers and all the buyers to figure out what a hemp fiber is.
We've been around since 2020 for almost 3 years. We were one of the first organizations to commercial licenses of cannabis.
Real quick, first time here, I believe, and been wonderful. We've met people just about every continent in the world, which is phenomenal.
Hi everyone, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our sponsors. It's been incredible working with each of you. Without you, we wouldn't be able to complete the projects that we have and get our seeds in the ground for this year's fiber variety trials. So thank you for everything that you've contributed. For anybody else, if you're interested in getting involved and want to contribute or sponsor, please reach out. We can make it happen.
Sometimes that music makes me go crazy, but sometimes I really like them. I got 2 new commercials and I had to play for them. But thanks everybody for joining. If you're catching us live now or on the replay, please don't hesitate to let us know where you're chiming in from. We'd love to hear from you. I'm really excited about this interview, coming at this from an angle not just in the hemp industry, but across all agriculture and processing. So Shane, I'm really excited to have you. Thank you very much for joining today. I love what you and your team are doing and all the support that you've given. So before I chatter on too much, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your background. What got you into this industry? And tell maybe our audience who doesn't know who HPP is, what you guys are doing.
So if you haven't met us before, my background is in ag processing and engineering. I'm a licensed engineer here in Colorado and worked for a couple of different equipment companies doing seed processing, equipment, grain handling, some recycling, some minerals, some different general material handling things, and processing, sorting, separating, that kind of stuff. And we got excited about hemp when the Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill passed. Colorado legalized it. And all of a sudden, there was the ability to do some seed business in our home state. So I've traveled a lot throughout my career, been all over the world, probably 15 or 20 different countries doing seed equipment, but very rarely was able to do something in Colorado. So when hemp came along, we started working on seed conditioning, seed cleaning, that sort of stuff that didn't really exist in the hemp world, and quickly transitioned into also working on separating materials so that flower could be processed into CBD. For them, the seed was a contaminant and the stalk was a contaminant. So we focused on removing those things and creating big systems to do it. We scaled up quickly and did several systems that would process 10,000 pounds an hour of incoming hemp and create really, really clean flower for extractors. So my background in material handling and separation is what got us into hemp. We weren't hemp people looking for a solution, a separation solution. We were the opposite. We were a separation solution provider looking for a product. And hemp happened to work really well with some traditional industrial and ag processing techniques. So we fit quickly into the industry. We got excited about all the things you can do with hemp, like everybody else did, and have been discouraged by the FDA taking a long time, by animal feed taking a long time, and kind of slow adoption of building materials. So we're like everybody else. We say, hey, we can do a jillion things with this plant. Give us some room to run. And there have been a lot of hurdles to clear. Mm-hmm. So we've been just hammering away one nail at a time, working on better equipment solutions, trying to really look out a year, 3-5 years out in the future and decide what's going to be needed and kind of be ready for that. But it's been a long road. Initially, lots of success with CBD and seed material. The industry was booming, everybody was flourishing, And we were out there in facilities. I think we did facilities in 11 different states. We did 19 or 20 different processing facilities. It was exciting. And now we've been in this kind of lull. We just came home from NOCO and talked to a lot of the people we've gotten to know over the years. And there are a lot of people just kind of in that holding pattern right now.
Okay, so I've got a few people I want to say hi to, but I've got some questions I want to talk about and really look at what industry looks like as it's transitioned from a cannabinoid production into this fiber and grain, right? But I want to say hi to Mark with Panda. Thank you so much for joining. Natasha, it was fabulous seeing you at NOCO as well. John, as always, it's fabulous seeing you. Thank you so much. We need to get you on here too. Let's do that. And then Rod has a question that I love when these come up because I always feel like we're doing exactly what we're supposed to. But can hemp be distilled into powder and pellets for plastic companies to make and reduce the carbon footprint? You want to address that a little bit, Shane?
Oh, yeah, it certainly can. I think that's one of the highest volume areas that we're seeing for hemp stocks. I think that the plastics industry really wants something to replace petroleum products with, or at least reduce their petroleum products. And I don't think there's really a question right now of if it will work. It's been proven out, but the problem with plastics is scale. When you talk to a real plastics manufacturer, they don't talk about hundreds of pounds. They don't talk about thousands of pounds. They talk about hundreds of tons. Mm-hmm. And right now, if you took every hemp stock grown in America and turned it into powder for plastics, you probably wouldn't really scratch the surface. And so there are some products that we need to be used in quantities to get the industry rolling, somebody who can buy what's available now. But for plastics to take the leap, I believe our entire industry is going to have to take a quantum leap forward. We're going to have to increase 10-fold or maybe even 100-fold to hit those numbers. So will plastics work? Absolutely, yes. When will they work? That's the big question.
Well, and some are working now, right, on small scale.
Small scale, yeah.
I mean, proof of concept has been done, right? We're seeing it in the automotive industry all over the world. They're being used but yes, I'm with you, as in order for us and certain types of plastic, right? I was really unaware that like blow mold plastic was different than some of these other containers or, whatever extrusion. Yeah. And so I know that there are some tweaks and some science that still needs to be discovered, right? In order to hit each of those. But as you were just saying, right, the scale of the industry also, as we were talking online before or offline before we went live, this discussion around how do we meet the spec, at big scale. There's all these different processing equipment and different types of retting and different types of processes. We want to talk a little bit about what industry looks like now and what we anticipate in order to meet those specs. And then maybe, what that transition looked like from cannabinoid to fiber processing, fiber and grain processing?
I think right now we're seeing a couple of different equipment methodologies emerge to deal with both retted hemp, which is traditional textile hemp fiber preparation, right, and unretted hemp. We stumbled across the ability to process unretted hemp by trying to do something with waste CBD stocks early on. Right, there's a lot of stock going waste. What are we do with these? And we experimented with some different kinds of equipment, happened to find one mill that does an exceptionally good job decorticating unretted hemp. So I think as we move forward and we start to standardize things, it'll be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm an equipment guy, so I see everything through a kind of an equipment toolbox lens. And as we see different decorticating technologies put out different types of material, there's going to be some secondary post-processing things that we can do to homogenize that or get them close enough to the same spec to really get them into a bigger contract. I think that it's going to require some openness from a lot of processors to be able to really make themselves a little bit vulnerable. You're a little bit vulnerable to competition, or maybe a little bit vulnerable to criticism. Anytime you make something, you're very proud of it. You think it's the best. You put it out there, and people are going to be a little bit hesitant to have somebody else pick their product apart and say, well, it doesn't really meet our spec. But if you're realistic about it, everybody's putting out a different product. So we all know that every product's going to require some amount of change or refinement to hit that spec. Yeah. So if people will be honest and open about what they're putting out, and they will be willing to accept a new piece to be put into their process to get to that spec, I do believe that commonality can be achieved, I think, in 1 year. I think that we can look at this, and we separate stuff all the time. People send us samples of stuff. We separate it. We do our own R&D. And so I know that if people just put it all in a box, all got in a room, looked at it, and got there, and if somebody points to your box and says, wow, I really like that, I'm having trouble getting that last 3% of fiber out of the herd. What are you doing to do that?
Bingo.
And if you're willing to say, here's how we do it, then we all hit the spec, and now we throw our stuff in the same truck and send it to Levi's or Otterbox or whoever the big manufacturer is.
Yeah.
It's going to require some openness. I haven't seen that level yet from a lot of producers. I've seen it from a few, but I haven't seen it from the vast majority. And so I don't know what kind of trade alliance documentation it's going to take to get people to feel legally protected. Or even just morally, ethically protected.
Well, and I think it's not even so much like we can have the discussion without sharing IP, right? And there is a lot of value that I talk about all the time in sitting next to your competitor in what works, what doesn't. We are all little fish in this big pond right now. We have a few players, like you said, that have been more than open to share, but it really is going to have to take everybody around the table being willing to share what's working, what's not. And like you said, being vulnerable to say, well, I should be meeting, X number of tons, and I'm really at this, and what's working and what doesn't. And like you said, you being able to come in with an outside perspective, not just on hemp, but on processing in general in other commodities, that the technology may already exist, and being able to add it to an existing line. So I'm gonna put this call out there, right? As we start to do this in really advanced industries, working together and pulling samples together so that we can have them all run under a state lab or the same area, right? And take a non-biased cut of what do we have on the market and how do we reach the spec that's needed for these large contracts? Because proof of concept is we already know that. We already know that we can reduce carbon footprints for these large auto dealers. So
we do. And we know that if we want to hit big textiles, if you want to sell to, Carhartt's an easy one to pick on, right? Because they make really rugged workwear. So you think hemp's rugged. You listen to Guy Carpenter talk about the massive benefits of hemp fiber, and you think, man, somebody like Carhartt ought to do that. But when you look at the amount, at the tonnage that goes into those kind of productions, we need to really commit to that combining outputs of hemp plants. Here's the other thing. There are not enough acres being grown this year. And so how do we make farmers feel good about taking the leap and putting hemp into rotation with their other crops? Well, if farmers know that companies, these big national companies, are consuming their product, that will give them the faith that they lack right now. Hemp's had a black eye so bad from farmers being promised something and then not being delivered. And I think that having that, so you've got the farmer, the processor, and then the manufacturer, right? And to get the trust for the new processor who's coming online, and there are a lot of new ones coming online, in order for them to get trust, they need that back end user. They need that brand name out there
to know that they know where their material is going, right?
That's right.
I also want to add too, and I'm glad that we've been talking about the plastics sector, because we've got to pay attention to what high value product is going to drive industry. Like, don't get me wrong, like animal bedding and the herd, it's a huge market, right? But is the profit margin big enough to drive the market instead of us pushing that market? And so I'm excited about composites, and I'm excited about the paper and packaging sector starting to open up and us being able to meet specs to see development and scalability.
Well, I think the animal bedding gives us that. It's like a gateway product, right? You can sell 1 bale of it or 1 million bales of it. It doesn't require the 1 million bales to have an industry. We have horses, and my wife absolutely loves hemp bedding. She tells all her friends about it, and we use it. She sort of made me promise that I'll always make sure she can get hemp bedding, even if they're using it.
That's a lot of pressure, Shane.
I know it's worth more money as a plastic than a horse bedding. So, I may have to just siphon off a super sack a month or something to keep her happy.
Yes.
So I think that gets us going. And I think hemp bedding is profitable enough to warrant putting in a plant, right? So if it will at least pay the overhead and get a processing plant in production and profitable, then you start to look at phasing that out and going into that high value plastic type thing. There was a request for product floated a couple of years ago from one of the major auto companies. Probably a ton of people listening to this have heard about it. But it would take 90,000 acres to suffice that one contract for one of the American automakers. 90,000 acres. We know they're not 90,000 acres to put toward that, right? So 10,000, they're not even interested. 10,000 acres, don't call me. All you're going to do is give them enough to get them started and then cease production. And they've had enough of that.
Well, and again, this goes back to, in order to get a large manufacturer to switch their line over, their cost or burden of, their barrier of entry is huge. And I know we've talked about it a lot, but I'm not sure that the consumer understands how hard it is to make a transition from a plastic to a natural fiber. I mean, it is the R&D and the money involved in order to do so, and the risk that manufacturer takes on. So it really goes back again to this consumer demand, right? Consumers are demanding a carbon neutral facility and transparency and, more ethically sourced materials. And so it's exciting to see that transition. Can you talk a little bit about the transition of equipment and processing? We talked a lot about the size and the volume of what we need, but understanding we're still so small. So can you talk about what, processing equipment may look like as industry develops compared to right now?
Right now, I would say, in my view of equipment that's out there are two scales, large and small. There's very little in what I would consider the medium space, right? So if you look at the people who are geared up to do 1,000 pounds an hour, and you look at the people who are geared up to do 10,000 pounds an hour, they have different fixed costs per pound going in there, right? Obviously, if you do it right, the theory is a 10,000 pound an hour system has lower cost per pound than a 1,000 pound per hour system. What I see as a positive outgrowth of a trade alliance and people working together is that if you get the contract that's a high value plastic or something like that, then you're allowing those 1,000 pound an hour people to be able to sell at a profitable level, right? Because they combined. They don't have to be the 10,000 pound an hour guy if they combine with that, right? As long as it's not a price war. And we know that if you're going after these giant contracts, it's not a price war. It's a matter of getting enough in the bucket for the bucket to be sellable, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I'd like to see the small and the large producers be able to cooperate in a way that doesn't push the small producers out, but actually brings them in at a more profitable level. If you just want to compete on horse betting, I have a feeling it's going to be incredibly hard for the 1,000 pound people to compete with the 10,000 pound people. The horse betting is a commodity.
Yes,
that's right. It's going to be rough. So although horse betting may get hemp in there, it's not the end. It's not the end goal, I don't think. And these higher value products I see as the way for the small and the large people to actually lock arms and not be elbowing each other out. If it's horse betting, there's going to be some elbowing going on. And I don't want to see that, but it's business, right? It's a free market system.
Well, and volume, right? You look at just sheer volume. These larger facilities are putting out much larger volumes that give them larger fiber contracts that offset that. This is exactly kind of where, the how-to conversation that's come up, and how do we keep that cost, how do we keep these smaller processors in the market? And this is where that trade alliance or an opportunity to come together and pool contracts similar to a co-op.
Yeah. And I think it's going to happen. I really do. I don't think that ultimately people will relax and get together. I do think that's going to happen. And we both know some good players in the industry that have their heart in the right place, and they're going to keep pushing and pulling people together. So I think that's good. We do the core equipment we do is in that 10,000 pound an hour range, the core decorticating mill we use. So that's kind of where we start. But when it comes to other processes, the downstream processes, we can really do at any scale. If you want to do 100 pounds an hour, we can do little bitty equipment for that. So once it's been decorticated, if you're not using our decorticating machine, you're using something else that's lower volume, but you really just want to remove more fiber, or you want to get dust out, or you want to do packaging, or you want to do material handling. We can handle that side of it, and we're glad to help with that. And I have had a lot of conversations with people who saw our company as competition, and they really put up barriers. And whether it's a processor or an equipment person, and I look back over the last 3 years of that happening, and we never hurt each other. We never stole business from each other one way or the other.
Mhm.
So really 3 years ago, we should have been a little more cooperative.
Well,
And-
and even now, like, let's learn from that, right? Is that
Yeah.
at NOCO, that there was a speech. Melissa actually gave a TED Talk type presentation strictly on collaboration and being able to openly communicate. Yeah. So this again, I understand, like, and this is that fine line, as we facilitate these conversations and respecting IP is, what is that ironclad contract to make people feel secure, to know that, not only does it help the industry, but in order to get involved in some of these big contracts, what do you need to do it? So
Here's the other thing. Financing has been a hurdle for everybody, right? Funding.
Yeah.
Funding is the F word of hemp.
yes. Shout out to First Citizens Bank. They just
Everybody struggled with that. So it's something that we should tackle as an industry, right? It's not like there's those two guys that are having trouble getting money. It's the industry having trouble getting money. And nothing turns a banker on like a purchase order, right? Something that guarantees them a way to get their money back.
Yes.
Trade alliances are a great way to do that, because you can say, do I have the contracts? No, I don't, but I'm a member of the trade alliance that has all of these. So we're not in production yet, but they've guaranteed us acceptance in the alliance if we hit their spec and we do X, Y, and Z, right? We're in. Now a banker can say, oh, there's some security. What I've had so many funders say to people that we've been working with to get equipment into a facility is they said, well, send us your LOIs. So you send LOIs. All these people want to use our product. They say, well, okay, now send us the POs. You're like, who sends a PO to a company that doesn't have any equipment? Are you kidding?
Doesn't exist yet.
And so that's a hurdle that we got to get over. And this trade alliance piece, this cooperating piece, this build our volume thing is going to give the financial world some confidence in our industry, because they've all heard about CBD. Somebody lost money. They know a guy that lost money. It's been a black eye. We can get over that black eye with cooperation.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we've talked about offering a service, a consultation service for people seeking money. If you want us to look at your equipment list and what you're doing and what you're going to produce, and being able to write an expert opinion for a financing deal, we could come in and do that. And it doesn't have to be our equipment. We're engineers. We can look at whatever and evaluate that and potentially help move that forward by giving them a third-party evaluation.
Yeah, that other perspective. Talk to me about how people get involved. How do they reach out to you? And can you real quick give a brief overview of what your team looks like? So, who is in that box of that perfect client or customer?
So we're hempprocessingpartners.com, kind of a long domain name. All the short ones are gone, right? So we're all stuck. So hempprocessingpartners.com. We're on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a good way to get a hold of us. Our VP of Business Development, Bill Brill, is probably the most active on LinkedIn for us. He stays tuned in and plugged in with what's going on in the industry, and he's certainly the best at getting back with you. Me being an engineer, I'm not as on top of those things. So those are probably the best way to reach out to us. We've got in-house engineering capability. We do some contract manufacturing with a couple of local shops here, but the majority of our equipment comes from Kais Industries in Wichita, Kansas. They're a big company that's been around since, I don't know, probably the 40s or something. They've been around a really long time. We work with ECE in Kansas City. We work with Petkus in Germany. So we have some big established manufacturers that we work with, and then we create unique solutions for one-offs that don't have the volume for one of those manufacturers to work on. If we have something that they can build 10 of, we can take it to one of those manufacturers and they'll build it for us. If it's something we need one or two of, then we just do it a local manufacturer. So we have the ability to be really flexible, but we also have the ability to pull in some pretty big guns in the manufacturing world when we need to.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Bill, thanks very much for listening. People were asking where you're located, Colorado, just as a reminder.
Oh, yep.
And then there were a couple of comments too. Natasha is doing incredible work. Also, I believe working with IND at developing the market in Africa. She currently has a pretty good footprint over there, working with a number of large farmers, I guess small farmers, large group of small farmers in the coffee sector. And so really moving over. So she would love to connect. And I know anybody else listening, she's very involved doing great work over there, developing the supply chain. So I just wanted to give her a quick shout out. Todd, I saw you also on. Thank you very much for joining. And then Mark made a comment, and I'd be interested, Shane, on any feedback you have here. We need to, one, determine the right variation for the specific farm location, increase the acreage under cultivation, increase information to build farmers' confidence to grow hemp, and then build advocacy for a hemp crop insurance program. I think this really is the nooks and crannies, right? Especially as you determine like what that end material looks like, whether it's a composite or a textile, now kind of almost working backwards. And earlier when we were talking about developing the supply chain, the involvement of that brand or end manufacturer all the way down to the farmer in this stage is just critical. So do you have anything you want to add to Mark's comment?
No, I mean, his point number one there, you're working on very diligently, and I know that you're getting tons of data every replication of the crop trials.
Yeah,
I think that increasing the acreage under cultivation is really going to require enough processing facilities that farmers don't feel insecure about a single facility not taking their product. They need to know if they talk to company X, that if company X goes out of business or gets overrun or whatever, they can go to company Y and still be able to sell that hemp on the open market. It needs to have an open market commodity price, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the key piece is going to be some of these national brands getting involved and saying they want to use the product. I think that's going to give farmers a lot of confidence, I should say.
That's security, right? Like you said, the industry did a number to our farmers by overpromising and under-delivering, right? I mean,
one of the things locally here, if you go to our local farm and ranch supply store, which is here, Murdoch's, they're in Wyoming and Colorado and Montana, and Murdoch's is all over. You can go in there and you can buy hemp bedding. IND's got hemp bedding in Murdoch's. So if somebody asks me about it, that's the first thing I say. Hey, you ought to try some of that bedding over at Murdoch's. And so if they go over there and they buy a bag of it, now it's real. It's not a theory. It's not on the internet. It's in their local farm supply store, which every farmer shops at. And some of those kind of things are going to move the needle. They're going to be like, well, if their stuff's in there, maybe I should grow some of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was kind of the goal. Global Hemp Association got really lucky, and Patagonia gave a number of our members a jacket, a pair of pants, and a shirt, or a couple of different items. I think we collected a lot of entries, but really just out of a thank you to say, listen, your hard work is going into end finished goods. Look, you're holding it, you can wear it. And it does, it creates that sense of security. And I think this really goes back to that same like high value product, right? That is enough to drive additional costs on transportation, for example, to make that justification. I hear a lot of comments, and I work really close with some of the transportation companies. US1 Logistics has been phenomenal. Chris just joined our board. They've been around for a lot of years, and they're actually looking at potentially helping us to change the way things are classified and coded so that it could reduce costs. Because what we're learning is hemp animal bedding is actually the highest classification, which almost doubles transportation costs if it's coded incorrectly or correctly, actually, right? And so being able to identify those. But I also want to be careful. Transportation is expensive everywhere, right? What else do we do to reduce or to justify that increased cost? What is that high value material or product that would potentially grow? But I again go back, ideally regional is better. And identifying kind of what Mark said, right, is what's going to grow best where, and then where is that material best suited? Is it for a textile or a composite or an animal bedding or lignin extraction? So there's lots of pieces to it for sure. What do you anticipate as far as scalability? As we talked a little bit about, current markets and smaller pieces of equipment. Now, as we start to see scale, in the market, can you talk a little bit about how your specific equipment can scale up? And what are some of the main questions you're addressing from processors as you're meeting with people?
So we do lines that are 10,000 pound an hour increments. The big question that we always ask is, what do you want to do? What end products are you looking for? Because once it goes through the main decorticating mill, you have a lot of different directions you can go. Does it need further size reduction? I.e., do you need to make powder and then pelletize that powder for a plastic? Do you want to put it in bulk bags to be transported to another site? Does it need to go in a plastic bag for consumer packaging? So all of those post decorticating questions drive the overall system. So for us, scaling is a matter of doing it in kind of in 10,000 pound an hour increments. You may potentially put in 2 lines so that you have one line that's really tailored toward textiles, because the mill can be adjusted different ways. You can adjust for premium hurd or maybe premium fiber. You can tweak it for maximum size reduction on the first pass through, or you can look for the largest product. So if somebody has a specific offtake, we try to build to that, and then always look at gearing up and scaling based on what the next product's going to be. Instead of just saying we want to process more hemp, which particular fraction are we wanting to maximize?
What would you say you're hearing the most of? What is that fraction people are trying to meet, or that in material most people are coming to you asking about?
Textile grade fiber. And
Always.
Always, right? And that's the hardest one too, right? There's the most processing involved in textile grade fiber to get it to cotton. When you listen to Guy Carpenter talk, this is not easy, right? There's a lot that goes into a textile by the time it becomes a shirt. And the next one would be animal bedding, because people know that's an immediately sellable product right now. People talk a lot about hempcrete because it has it's gaining acceptance, but you couldn't really sell the huge volume of it right now. There's ASTM testing going on that's going to keep bumping that up. I know the Hempitecture guys are really starting to do a lot. I see, new warehouses coming online for them. So I think Hempitecture is really driving expanded use for insulation and hempcrete, but it's not yet to that scale where people are asking us anyway to build a full plant for it. I think it's coming, but this year it's animal bedding and textiles.
Yeah. I just had a question I was going to ask you about processing. Dang it. I wanted to dive in, and of course, okay, well, I want to real quick, we'll go. Chuck made a great comment here. For farmers need a plan to put into place guarantees sale of their hemp grown. And I really think this goes back farm and contractor, right? Our processor and brand need to have the contract with the farm direct, or with a group that manages that. And I think this trade alliance is another part of that, not only just for the processing, but also on the farming side and being able to meet those specs. Yeah. And I even deleted my questions. Oh, I'm so frustrated. I had a question about our in specs and products, and
it'll pop back up. I think as we look at what the hemp needs to turn into, it's the whole value question, right? If animal bedding is 50 cents a pound and plastics are $2.50 a pound, we know that's an obvious direction to drive, but I don't think we've fully explored the in value of all of the pieces of it yet, right? I think these are being explored.
That's what's exciting. If we can get more of this first phase processing in, this second phase where IP development and consumer good development is really what's exciting for me, and getting your hands in there. I wanted to address something real quick. I remembered my question. Yesterday, I interviewed a young lady, Lori, with GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standards. They're recognized internationally by a lot of organizations. And they said, or she mentioned, that hemp can be used to qualify like non-organic certified hemp can be used to qualify a textile as GOTS certified because of its ability to be grown without pesticides and organically. And because the shortage of cotton, organic cotton this year, hemp's ability to get these certifications on the textile side as a blend is huge. And so she kind of went through that yesterday. I was saying to Shane before we went live that our StreamYard didn't connect. And so I went ahead and recorded the interview through Zoom, and I'll post it and be sure we share it. But that's another huge textile, organization on the standards side that already has established standards on a global scale that recognizes hemp as this product, right, that our consumers are then driving for. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that we are seeing not just big brands, but organizations on the standards side accommodate hemp. It basically qualifies because of its ability to hit all 17 of the goals.
Well, if you look at if environmental stewardship is your goal, and you look at what goes into cotton, chemically, water,
processing
fuel use. I mean, cotton is a big, ugly, dirty product.
All textiles. Yeah. I think the textile industry alone, right? I want to be careful because I know that there's people that have done things different with cotton, and the technology of cotton has changed. And so I don't want to discredit, but it's amazing, the textile industry, the amount of pollution that comes, and it's disheartening. I mean, there's just no getting around it. It's disgusting. And we all contribute to it, right? We're like $5 t-shirts. Yeah.
Exactly. The American consumer wants cheap, right? We complain about everything coming from China, and then we go and buy the cheapest product we can find. Yeah.
Exactly. What else? Go ahead.
Another piece that I think is pretty exciting is the food side of it, right? Yes. It kind of gets glossed over because we're talking about the emerging uses of the stalk, but the seed, the nutritional benefits for people and animals is pretty amazing. So if you look at what you do with the seed, and you create an entire food ecosystem around this amazing protein, and you look at where it can be used to feed the world. You mentioned Africa earlier, right? Africa has great agricultural resources. They also have a lot of people to feed, and they don't need to be importing things from the United States or Europe or South America when they can grow it right there. And so the U.S. is having this battle with the FDA about being able to feed it to animals, which is pretty stupid, right? You can feed it to your child, but you can't feed it to your cow, because you might eat the cow someday, and what would that do to you?
Get high. They're afraid of you getting high.
Exactly. So when we get over that stupid hurdle, I think you're really going to see that side of it blow up, and that's where our roots are, is in the seed and grain side of things. So we're excited to see that come to pass. I've also eaten some incredible foods made out of hemp hearts. We worked with a client one time that brought us a bunch of samples of things they'd just been trying in their own home kitchen with these hemp hearts. A peanut butter replacement, pesto. They replaced the Parmesan cheese and pesto with hemp hearts. It was pretty amazing. So it was an eye opener to me to what could be done with that, and it is really good for you. And so now, if I happen to go to IND Hemp for any reason, I always grab some hemp hearts while I'm there because I want to eat them. We recently got some. I was talking to Patrick at IND about the oil, and we were talking about, I don't know how we got on the subject of what it could be used for, but he talked about staining wood with it. And so we were working on this countertop project here a while back on another little project. And so Patrick sent me some hemp oil to stain a butcher block countertop with. It was so cool. It was beautiful. Do you want to cut up meat on a countertop stained with a chemical or stained with hemp oil?
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, right?
That's awesome.
So I don't want to let that part slip through the cracks, because it is really a phenomenal way to use the plant, and it's ready to go right now. I know that there are hemp hearts in grocery stores in every state. Those things are out there. Consumer is still not educated as to really how good it tastes and how good it is for you. So we can all maybe talk to our friends and neighbors about that a little bit and drive that a little further. But that's a piece that can push the industry forward in traditional ag really easily. Farmers own equipment to handle seed. It's not a big investment. The Canadians have been doing it for a really long time, and they've got a very established market.
I always think about this is, what is it going to take to move product into consumers' hands, right? Because once it's there, they've got all the power and we'll be able to drive it.
Mhm.
But, I was really impressed. I've listened to a number of Chad's discussions or conversations and educational, presentations about Victory Hemp and some of the things they're doing as a meat substitute or their protein crunches, right? The more products we start to see develop, like the meat burger or, like you said, salad oils, but the protein chunks, when we were in Thailand, he was there and brought a bunch. And those things were like hot commodity because they're salad toppers. They go in granola bars. It's another product that, yes, it's hemp, but it's actually an additional product that can be purchased besides the raw protein or the raw hemp hearts. And I'm excited to see those come out and more granola bars that hemp is a part of. So it's fun to see it being sold as an ingredient into this huge market. Something that I hear, and I'm curious from you, is the cost. What do you anticipate? Hemp hearts are more expensive than some of these others. And I've had a number of companies say, well, we were using them, but we don't anymore because of the cost. What do you anticipate as far as scalability and cost and what that looks like for timeline and actually being able to penetrate market?
I think that food costs in general are incredible right now.
Yeah.
You go to the grocery store, it doesn't matter what you're buying, a can, a bag, a box, whatever's in it, it's expensive. And I think that actually could help hemp because now some of the other things hemp was competing with have gotten really expensive.
Yes.
So in my opinion, some scale will bring the cost of hemp ingredients down. There aren't a lot of producers right now. There are a few that do a really nice job. And I think that those people are really keeping the market going and getting interest going. But all of those producers would probably tell you if they had 10 times the production, there would be some cost savings. So I think hemp will come down where everything else, I believe, is going to continue to rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit. I want to give a shout out to Bill and your team also. And we talked a lot about the engineering side, but I also really want to compliment your team as far as ability to bring products to shelf and to market, and assist there. And so I just want to, anybody that's listening, this is not a small engineering shop. These guys have tons of experience. We talked a lot about the engineering and development of equipment, but also on the sales and distribution and connections. And so I just want to give Bill and you guys a shout out, and Drew.
Well, and when it comes to how we got into hemp, Bill's story has a long background of really getting products into consumers' hands.
Yeah.
And so he came into hemp as a facilitator of getting those products out there, and he's continuing to use those contacts and that experience to pull the consumer world into our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, it comes back to our consumers who are voting with their dollars, right? The
Yep.
pain point is not at the manufacturer. The pain point is at the consumer and the farm.
And then, you mentioned Drew, he's a project manager, and he's using his project management skills to kind of tie what Bill and I do together and pull these projects across the finish line. And he also has a deep knowledge of hemp, and has been an extremely diligent student of hemp over the last several years. And so he shares a lot of that knowledge with people that are trying to get going. And a lot of times when somebody calls and they just have an immense amount of questions, Drew fields those and tries to educate them to the point where they can decide, hey, we ought to look at this, or wow, this is more than I can handle. So
Yeah, I love it.
Those outside skills coming into hemp are what I think give us our strength.
I was just you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that's what adds the strength to the team and to development of the industry. Is it's for a long time we saw people in the hemp industry, and now we're starting to see people from other large verticals come in and say hemp has got to play a role in what I'm already doing and what's existing. And so it's pretty exciting.
Chuck on our team has a deep history in packaging and in the box industry and cardboard and those sort of things. And we were at NOCO, and I've had a lot of conversations with Chuck about things and didn't really understand all about what goes into making a cardboard box. And we sat down at a table and we're having a discussion with a processor, and Chuck was asking them questions about what they were doing to get their fibers into these processes. And I was blown away. Hemp obviously has a huge future in boxing, right? Because the fiber actually increases the strength of a box, which is a big thing. And so
And recyclability.
Exactly. So if we can leverage that on the packaging side of things in the next year or two, I think that'll help move the industry forward too.
I want to give a shout out to Charles and Christine. If you guys are listening, thank you so much for joining us from Facebook. I just saw you guys chime in and wanted to say hello. Shane, are you going to any events this summer, or what else do you guys have on your calendar?
We'll probably be at IND this summer in July, where we met last year.
Yeah.
As far as other events, we've got maybe some potential international travel, some things in India going on with textiles, maybe some stuff in Europe. So those plans aren't finalized yet, but that's what we're looking for.
If you guys need a travel buddy, I'm always up for good travel. I really want to make it over to Uganda with Carlos and IND and Natasha and her group, because they've got this incredible network and they're doing such great things to educate, and the impact there. I think that's what gets me so worked up, is the impact is so much larger than a textile facility here. Like their food security it will be so rewarding to be able to make change. And so it's fun to watch. I'd love to represent or have you guys be involved. There's a couple of things I want to mention, and I know we talked a little bit about it offline, but we're putting together some pages on our website where we will highlight our corporate members and what they do and potential discounts that may be offered or events they may be hosting, things like that. And so within this next month, look for Shane and HPP and his team to be available on our website also, where you'll be able to click through to their contact info and, connect. We'll also be sure to share our interview there so that if people have questions, they can, connect with you. But one more time, Shane, how do people reach out? We've got the website, we've got LinkedIn, anything else?
Website and LinkedIn is probably the best way to get to us. We are engineers, so we like to be out on site doing projects, and our engineering company, United Precision Engineering, is the parent company of HPP, and we do some construction projects and things like that as well. So we're out and about. So reach out, and more than likely you're going to get an email or a text or a call from Bill to get the ball rolling, and then we'll start answering questions and see what we can do.
Oh, I got my dog all worked up. I shouldn't have clapped. He's like, wait, somebody's here. Well, I would love to, like I said, continue to collaborate and continue to move this needle forward. If there's any questions or anybody has anything, whether you're watching it now, listening later on any of our podcast channels, or remembering that you can find all of our interviews listed on our YouTube channel. So this interview will be listed here pretty soon, and then also shared on Global Hemp Association website and Friends of Hemp. Bill, you're a rock star. I'm so glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much. And then Mark has a question real quick. If anyone has Texas processing textile in Atlanta next month. Oh, I look forward to connecting. Oh, I would love to go. See, these are another thing, is some of these events that are textile focused. Also, Shane, there's a couple of other farm events that I will be speaking at this year. I'd love to get you an invite. South Dakota, one in New York, Kansas again. But also we'll be sharing our data, our trial data, and some of the stuff we're doing. But I would love to make sure that you get an invite and get out there. You guys are so great. And I'm going to laugh at myself. I wear and have worn Birkenstocks to pretty much every field I went to last year, which was a lot. And so I bought myself a pair of boots. I won't be standing out like a sore thumb anymore with the farmers. And so I have to joke about that, because every time I see somebody from IND, they're like, oh, Mandi sandals in the field again. So it's funny. But I really, really appreciate everything you're doing. I'm excited to help this grow. If anybody has questions, reach out to Shane and his team. Like I said, they're an incredible resource. I listen to a lot of conversations. I've actually sat in on a presentation as we tried to get some equipment going as well. And so it's been fabulous. You guys' customer service has been top notch. So I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to share before we sign off?
No, we've talked about a lot of good topics. I think that the increased cooperation that we've been talking about for months now is getting some traction in the industry. And I think people have decided that we got to work together. And so we're really excited to be a part of that.
Okay, so I don't know if I even finished. I am looking for samples, right? If you're a processor and listening, and Shane, I'll lean on you also for this, but so that we can have that discussion about how to meet those specs, what's on the market and what do we need to do to meet the spec, because the contracts are coming in and large organizations are interested. And in order for us to fulfill it and actually be successful, it's going to require collaboration. We don't need another black eye. And so, yeah, I really appreciate your effort, and I invite anybody, if you have questions about sending material or sending us samples, it will be a unanimous draw. We will have them all looked at and just under one lab so that we have consistent data. But really a goal of this next conversation or phase is how to. And so please reach out either on the website or Mandi@globalhempassociation.org, and we'll set up arrangements to get samples sent over. Mark, I'm calling on you too. We need samples from Panda as well. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Shane. Thanks again, Bill, and everybody else. We have one more interview tomorrow at the same time, 10 o'clock, and then you can find all of our additional events. Tomorrow, we're talking with Texas A&M, Clay Moore, and I'm really excited about everything that they're doing. So it'll be a good conversation. Shane, thank you again. I really appreciate you, and
Thanks,
we'll
man.
talk soon. Absolutely.
Right.
Have a good day.
You too.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.